It's round 22 of the F1 season and we head to Las Vegas for the third time in a row. And well, this is a track that personally I wasn't enamoured with when we first arrived here and it was announced, but I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think the previous two races we've had here, the only two races we've had here, have been really enjoyable. So, can they make it 3 for 3? It's the first of a triple header to end the season as well, as we have Qatar and Abu Dhabi remaining, with Qatar being a sprint race as well. So Lando Norris, who currently leads the championship, he can't mathematically win the championship here, with, of course, it being a sprint race and still 2 full races remaining. But he can very much put one hand on the trophy if he was to outscore Oscar Piastri here this weekend. So lots of things to keep an eye on, and it's a track where really it's not always the season favourites who end up performing well here. We do get some outliers. So let's look at what to expect for this Vegas race weekend and, of course, my predictions. So first things first is the timings for this race weekend. It is just your usual race weekend. Of course, sprint race is next time around at Qatar, but it's a very early one for us in Europe, particularly for me in the UK. Don't feel sorry for me, guys, because I do know that many of you across the world do watch F1 at ungodly hours, sometimes even on the way to work for those of you down under. So I'm not complaining whatsoever. It is slightly different this year, though, from previous 2 races that we've had here. They've brought the time earlier in the day or in the evening because the track temperatures were getting very cold. And personally, I also think it's maybe to entice more people to attend the race itself, so that it's a little bit earlier in the evening rather than it being a really, really late affair. Even though Vegas really never sleeps, people still do in Vegas, especially when it's a track and a race that does upset a lot of the locals. So yeah, I think that's also the plan there. So yeah, just check your time zones because it's not going to be friendly for many of us in Europe, that's for sure. So the track, and as you can see, this may be the first time that you're seeing this track map, and it's not very inspiring, is it, when you look at it on paper? But it has provided us 2 very good races, and I think it's going to provide us a third. And why is that? Well, the main reason isn't actually the layout, although we will touch upon that in a second, but it's more so the temperatures that we see here. And they kind of go hand in hand, but the temperature in particular, as we've already touched upon, the schedule has been brought forward a couple of hours compared to the last 2 times that we've been here, and that's to ensure that hopefully the track conditions aren't as cold as we have seen them in the past. We saw track conditions last year get down to as low as 14 degrees, and that is nowhere near as high as what we get, say, in Mexico, where we saw pushing 50 degrees, and on average it's probably around a 20 to 30 degree range for the majority of the season. So this is the coldest track that they come to all year, the teams, and that provides basically those teams who their car is set up for the majority of the season to manage tyre temperatures. They come here and it's an outlier where you struggle to get temperature into those tyres, and that's why we've seen the likes of Ferrari and Mercedes over the last couple of years challenge the dominant Red Bull. And well, this year I think we're going to see McLaren, who are the dominant force, also similarly struggle, because that's where their strength has been, is in managing those tyre temperatures. We have seen the good performances from Lando in the last 2 races at Mexico and Brazil, where others have faltered. And that now brings us on to the track layout, because how does that contribute to the tyres not being able to get up to temperature? And well, as you can see, there's more straights here than there are corners. It is really only Sector 2 that has any sort of high-speed corners, turn 6 through turn 10 and 11. And that is pretty much it. Most of the corners here are at the end of hard braking zones, turn 14 at the end of the strip, turn 1 where they're going full speed through turn 17. It's you'll see, of course, on social media for the majority of the week of the F1 cars going full speed through there, and it's absolutely phenomenal to witness. And then, of course, turn 5. So there are 2 DRS zones here, but really it is the Vegas strip down into turn 14 and turn 1 where we see overtake, so a low downforce setup is required here. So the cars aren't loaded enough, they're not putting enough energy through the tyres here, and well, when you're running a lower downforce setup, of course you're not able to push in the corners as much. So the amount of time that you would gain through the second sector as an example, or even turn 1, turn 3 with more downforce added to the car, it's completely offset by the time that you would lose down into turn 14 and down into turn 1 with those straights. So yes, that is why we see some very high speeds here. Of course, with the lower track temperatures as well and just the lower air temperature, cooling isn't so much of an issue, so drivers are able to follow in dirty air for a lot longer, and that's why we've seen some good overtakes here and some good moments. Now, that's not to say that we won't see engine issues, because this track is positioned at the end of the calendar year, and we know, other than Max Verstappen, there's no one with a brand new engine in the back of their car at the moment. So everyone is running on is down on horsepower, and of course the engines are stressed at this stage of the season. We have seen engines go pop in the past, but it just provides for some great racing here. It really does, and I think we're going to see that again here this weekend. So while it doesn't look on paper a very interesting track, it's simple enough that it provides good racing and close racing, and I think we're going to see that here again this weekend. Now onto the tyres. So understandably, we are on the softer end of the range, not quite using the C6 here. C3, C4 and C5 are in use, and you can see from the graphic on your screen right now, there is the right rear that does take the most energy through here, of course, with this being an anti-clockwise circuit and with a lot of slow corners. The rears are always something that you need to manage, of course, ensuring that they don't spin, and even while it does take a little while for those tyre temperatures to get up to the right window, you still have to look after them to some respect. The track evolution here is very high, just like it is kind of really at other street circuits like Baku. This is a track that is very similar to Baku in a sense. The only difference, I would say, is pretty much just the track temperature and air temperatures that we're going to see due to its location. So not really too much else to discuss here on the tyres. I don't think it's a track where we're really going to see any management on those rears. We may see a little bit, some will fare better than others, but for the most part it hasn't ever really been an issue. It's about ensuring that those fronts, if you can get a bit more temperature in them, we might see quite a bit of weaving in the early stages of the race. That is going to be essential to ensure that you don't lock up into corners. It's something that we do see quite often here, as we saw at Baku. With a lot of slow right angle corners, it's difficult to get temperature in those fronts, and that's where we see drivers lock up. So turn 12 into turn 12 in particular, we have seen quite a few lockups there. It's quite akin to Baku, where if you don't bail out of that corner soon enough, you will just end up straight on into the barrier. So yeah. Now the weather for Vegas, and well, you can see on Friday it's gonna be a wet one, as I'm currently recording this on the Wednesday. That's what it looks like, and you can see there 14 degrees is the air temperature, so looking like it's gonna be a cold one there. Now of course this race, these sessions are going to be held in the evening time in Vegas, US time, so really 6 o'clock onwards is what you're looking for. So Friday looks like light rain and light winds. By the time we get to the evening, it does die down, as you can see, but it is cool. 13 degrees heading down to 11 degrees. Saturday does look to be a lot drier, completely dry to be exact. 19 degrees during the day, but in the evening dropping down to below 13 degrees, and similar for the Sunday as well. So I don't really have too many concerns when it comes to the wet weather. It's more so, of course, the Saturday and Sunday when it comes to those all-important qualifying sessions and the race on Sunday. But those track conditions, or the air temperature, is going to bring those track temps down somewhat. So even bringing that time forward a couple of hours might not actually have too much of an effect in relation to those track temps like we've seen the previous 2 years. Now on to my predictions, and well, I think, to be honest with you, you can copy and paste the race results from Baku to here. I really do think that's the case. Now, Max Verstappen, as I've touched upon, he has a brand new engine in the back of his car, and he is the only one out of the top teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren, who has a brand new power unit in the back of his car. And just like it was back in Monza and Baku in particular, where he also had a brand new power engine in the back of his car, he is going to dominate here. And we know also that Red Bull, when there's been no issues in relation to tyre deg and on low downforce circuits, that car is so much more quicker than the McLaren, who, as Lando has already touched upon after his race win in Brazil, they're going to struggle here. They're definitely going to be off the pace in relation to Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. And it's just really a battle, I think, from Lando's perspective with him and Piastri. His race this weekend isn't anyone else. It's not Max Verstappen. It's purely against Piastri, because that's who he's still realistically fighting for the championship. We know Max Verstappen, even with a great pit lane to third place at Brazil, he still lost points on Lando, and he's just under that 2 race win difference. So Lando basically just needs to outscore Piastri, and as we said at the start, he has one hand then on the Drivers' Championship with only 2 race weekends remaining. Of course, mathematically can't secure the championship here with it there being a sprint race and 2 full races remaining. So he would, if he won this race, theoretically won this race, and Oscar didn't score any points for whatever reason, he would still be under that 50-point gap, Oscar, to Lando. So mathematically still within a chance. But the McLarens, I think, will be second best to the Mercedes and Max, so shall we say third best. Mercedes, I think, are going to be the second best. I think they're going to round off the podium, to be honest with you. My only concern is probably Kimi Antonelli. I think George Russell, of course, won here last year. I think if Max didn't have a brand new power unit in the back of his car, I think he would challenge Max and there'd be a genuine fight up front. But I think Max is going to have too much with that extra horsepower that he has. Of course, it all depends if they're able to get the car in a nice setup, but I fully expect Red Bull to be able to do that. This is their track. This is the sort of track that they've done very well at all season. And even with the lower track conditions, I think that's actually going to suit Red Bull even more so than it would Mercedes. But I think George will comfortably be second. Third place, I'm a little bit concerned about Kimi, primarily because he hasn't been here before. Of course, great performance at Brazil, but he would have spent countless hours and been very familiar with it from all of his time in the sim. And of course, he performed very well there. But Vegas is very different. It's a street circuit, of course, so less room for error. And of course, getting those tyres into the right window. Has he gained enough over this season to manage those tyres and understand those Pirelli tyres? I think he'll do well. I think he'll finish in the top 5 just because I think Mercedes will still be good enough. But a podium, maybe that will go to the likes of one of the Ferraris, maybe. You would say, form suggests Charles Leclerc. Would this track benefit Ferrari? Of course, with the extra ride height that is required here because it's a bumpier circuit, Vegas, and with it being a street circuit, that's where Ferrari's issues have been this year, of course, with the ride height, not being able to run the car as low, and all of the other issues of LICO and so forth. But I think the problem with them is that, yes, they just don't have a good enough race car, and consistently they are being told to lift and coast after just a couple of laps into a race, and I suspect that'll be the case here again, even with the cooler conditions. There's how often do we need to say it? There's fundamental issues at Ferrari, but they could still get a podium. Would it be Lewis or will it be Charles? Lewis has gone well here, of course, last year, finished on the podium with Mercedes, but he's evidently struggling in that Ferrari, and I just don't think that's going to turn around here this weekend. I think the McLarens, will finish. I think a top 5 would be a great performance from them, to be honest. I think it really will. They just don't have top speed. We know that that's where they've suffered this year. Their advantage has definitely been in the high speed to medium speed corners. But their top speed have always been towards the lower end of the speed traps. Not to say that they can't achieve higher top speeds. They have tried. But that's when the performance comes back towards Mercedes and particularly Red Bull. So, yeah, I think top 5 will be great for them. Of course, Piastri has to beat Norris. He has to if he still wants an opportunity. But we know street circuits haven't necessarily been his strength this year. Norris has definitely had the better of him when they've come to street circuits. So, yeah, it's painted to be an interesting one. Of course, it's not all done and dusted for Lando Norris. This is one that really he needs to just get through. From a driver's championship perspective, he needs to just get through unscathed. Not do a Piastri in Baku. Keep his car intact. Just pick up some points. Of course, your battle here this weekend is with Piastri. It's not with everyone else. Let them do what they need to do. Will he do that? We will see. But it's definitely going to be an interesting one. As always, I'll be live streaming via my watch-alongs for every single session. Yes, I will be up at ungodly times in the morning. But as I said, don't feel sorry for me because I've had it good for the majority of this season. And I will when we head to Qatar and Abu Dhabi in a few weeks' time. So yes, hope you can join me for the first race of this triple header. And I think it's definitely going to be free for free here at Vegas for them being absolute bangers. Let me know if you agree with my predictions in the comments below. And I will see you for my watch-alongs. See you then. Bye.